A new weight loss drug just helped people lose an average of more than 70 pounds. Nearly half of those taking the highest dose lost at least 30% of their body weight. But there is a catch. You cannot legally get the real medication yet. The drug is called Retatrutide, and the latest Phase 3 results are creating serious excitement. Some people are already calling it the next Ozempic, the next Zepbound, or even the closest thing medicine has seen to weight loss surgery in an injection. That sounds incredible. It also skips a few extremely important details, because Retatrutide is still experimental. It has not been approved by the FDA or any other regulatory agency. Its long-term benefits and risks are still being evaluated. And despite that, websites are already selling mystery vials that claim to contain it. So today, let's separate the historic trial results from the internet hype. We are going to break down how Retatrutide works, how much weight people actually lost, how it compares with Ozempic and Zepbound, and the side effect almost nobody is discussing. And near the end, we need to talk about why some people buying Retatrutide online may have absolutely no idea what they are injecting. Yeah, this gets interesting fast. First, what makes Retatrutide different? You may have heard people call it a triple G drug or even GLP-3. But GLP-3 is not a real scientific category. That is basically a nickname social media gave it. Retatrutide is more accurately described as a triple hormone receptor agonist. That means one molecule activates 3 different receptor pathways: GLP-1, GIP, and glucagon. Semaglutide, the active ingredient in Ozempic and Wegovy, targets the GLP-1 receptor. Tirzepatide, used in Mounjaro and Zepbound, targets GLP-1 and GIP. Retatrutide adds glucagon signaling to the mix. Think of it like this: semaglutide presses 1 metabolic button. Tirzepatide presses 2. Retatrutide is walking into the control room and pressing 3. Now, pressing more buttons does not automatically mean better results or better safety. Sometimes it means more power. Sometimes it means somebody needs to stop touching the controls. GLP-1 and GIP signaling can influence appetite, fullness, and blood sugar regulation. The glucagon component may also affect how the body uses and expends energy. Researchers are essentially trying to combine appetite reduction with broader metabolic effects inside one weekly medication. And based on the newest results, that approach appears extremely powerful. Here is the number everybody is talking about. In Lilly's Phase 3 TRIUMPH-1 study, participants taking the highest 12 mg dose lost an average of 28.3% of their body weight over 80 weeks. The average participant began the study weighing roughly 248 pounds. The average loss was just over 70 pounds. Let that sink in. That is an average, not one carefully selected transformation posted on Instagram. And 45.3% of participants taking the highest dose lost at least 30% of their starting weight. More than 1 out of every 4 lost at least 35%. Meanwhile, the placebo group lost an average of 2.2% under the study's primary analysis. But before TikTok turns this into "take one shot and wake up with abs," there is important context. The treatment lasted 80 weeks. That is more than a year and a half. Participants started at a lower dose and increased it gradually. They were also enrolled in a controlled clinical trial, not ordering powder from a website between protein shake ads. The results also depended on dose. Participants taking 4 mg lost an average of 19%. At 9 mg, the average was 25.9%. At 12 mg, it reached 28.3%. So the dramatic number came from the highest studied dose, which also produced more side effects and more treatment discontinuations. Remember that part. We are coming back to it. There was also an extension involving participants who began with a body mass index of at least 35, completed the original study, and tolerated their assigned treatment. At the highest maximum tolerated dose, that selected group reached an average weight loss of 30.3% after 104 weeks. That is an extraordinary result. But it should not be presented as though every person entering the study lost 30%. They did not. And this is where headlines can get slippery. You will see, Retatrutide causes 30% weight loss. The more accurate version is, a selected extension group with a higher starting BMI who completed the main trial and tolerated treatment averaged 30.3% after 2 years. Still impressive, just not the same sentence. So did Retatrutide officially beat Ozempic, Wegovy, and Zepbound? Not so fast. The results look larger than the average losses reported in major trials of semaglutide and tirzepatide. But comparing numbers across separate studies is not the same as comparing drugs in one direct trial. Different studies can include different people, durations, protocols, and statistical methods. A direct Phase 3 study comparing Retatrutide with tirzepatide is underway. Until those results arrive, anyone confidently declaring a winner is getting ahead of the evidence. Retatrutide may eventually prove more effective. It may also come with trade-offs that make another medication better for certain patients. Medicine is annoyingly complicated like that. There is rarely one championship belt for everybody. Now let's talk about the catch. Actually, there are several. The first is the familiar one: gastrointestinal side effects. At the 12 milligram dose, about 42% of participants experienced nausea. Around 32% experienced diarrhea. About 26% experienced constipation, and roughly 25% experienced vomiting. So yes, the average weight loss number was dramatic. But for some participants, their digestive system was also submitting a formal complaint. Most events were reported as mild to moderate, and many incretin medications produce similar types of side effects, especially while doses increase. Still, these numbers matter when someone shows you only the before and after picture. There is also a balance between effectiveness and tolerability. At 4 milligrams, 4.1% of participants discontinued treatment because of adverse events. At 9 milligrams, that rose to 6.9%. At 12 milligrams, it reached 11.3%. In other words, the most effective dose was also the dose people were most likely to stop because of side effects. Then, there is one less familiar issue: dysesthesia. That is a medical term for unusual or uncomfortable skin sensations, which can include tingling, burning, sensitivity, or a strange altered feeling. Dysesthesia occurred in approximately 12.5% of participants taking the highest dose, compared with less than 1% receiving placebo. Most reported cases were mild to moderate, and many resolved during treatment. But it is still something worth watching. This is an important reminder. When a drug activates 3 hormone pathways and produces unusually large biological effects, we should not be surprised when the safety conversation contains more than "you might feel a little nauseous." Large weight loss can also create its own challenges. People must consider nutrition, hydration, gallbladder concerns, medication interactions, muscle preservation, and whether they are losing weight faster than their lifestyle can support. And that brings us to muscle. Losing 70 pounds sounds incredible, but the scale does not separate fat from lean tissue for you. Any major weight loss treatment needs to be paired with enough protein, appropriate resistance training, and medical guidance. Otherwise, somebody can celebrate a smaller number while quietly losing strength along the way. We covered that problem in our first Beyond the Shot video. The next catch is that Retatrutide is not approved, not hard to find, not available through the right wellness clinic, not technically legal if the website uses enough disclaimers. It is investigational. Lilly says the legitimate medication is legally available only to people participating in its clinical trials. The FDA has gone even further. As of 2026, Retatrutide cannot legally be used in compounding under federal law. It is not a component of an FDA-approved drug and has not yet been found safe and effective for any medical condition through the regulatory approval process. So when a website claims it can sell you compounded Retatrutide today, that is a giant red flag wearing another giant red flag as a hat. And here is the scary part. An online vial labeled Retatrutide is not the medication used in Lilly's clinical trials. You may not know who manufactured it, whether it is sterile, whether the dose is accurate, whether it was stored correctly, or whether it contains Retatrutide at all. It could contain too little active ingredient, too much, the wrong ingredient, or harmful contaminants. That means somebody could watch a video about impressive Phase 3 results, buy a completely unverified product, and assume they are receiving the same drug studied by researchers. They are not. The label does not create the evidence. Writing Retatrutide on a mystery vial does not magically transfer Lilly's clinical trial results into that bottle. Now, does all of this mean Retatrutide is overhyped? No. The results deserve attention. Average weight loss of 28.3% over 80 weeks is a major scientific development. The study also reported improvements in waist circumference and several cardiovascular risk markers, including triglycerides, blood pressure, and non-HDL cholesterol. This could become an important future treatment for obesity. But could become is doing important work in that sentence. Researchers are still studying Retatrutide in people with type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, chronic kidney disease, sleep apnea, fatty liver disease, knee osteoarthritis, and other obesity-related conditions. Weight loss is only one part of the story. Doctors also need to understand long-term safety, cardiovascular outcomes, durability, and who benefits most. And even after approval, assuming it is approved, there will still be questions. How much will it cost? Will insurance cover it? How difficult will it be to manufacture enough supply? What happens when someone stops taking it? Can patients maintain adequate nutrition and muscle during extreme weight loss? And will the most powerful dose be tolerable enough for ordinary, long-term use? Those questions are not reasons to dismiss the medication. They are reasons to avoid pretending the story is finished. Retatrutide may be the next major leap in obesity treatment. But the history of medicine is filled with things that looked perfect during the hype phase and became more complicated once millions of people began using them. Real-world medicine always introduces plot twists, so here is the honest verdict. Retatrutide has produced some of the most impressive weight loss results ever reported for an investigational medication. Its triple-action design may push obesity treatment beyond what current drugs can achieve, but it has not yet changed weight loss forever. It has shown that it might. That is exciting enough without exaggerating it. The catch is not one hidden scandal. It is the entire list. Retatrutide is still investigational. The highest dose caused substantial gastrointestinal side effects. More participants stopped the highest dose because of adverse events. Long-term outcomes are still being studied, and anything being sold online today is not an approved Retatrutide product. The smart response is not blind hype or automatic fear. It is cautious excitement. Watch the trials. Wait for regulators to review the complete evidence. And please do not inject something from a website just because the vial has a scientific-sounding label and the checkout page accepts cryptocurrency. Your body is not a beta testing environment. Now I want to hear from you. If Retatrutide is eventually approved, would you consider it? Or would the side effect numbers make you stay with an older treatment? Tell me in the comments. And do you think the potential for greater weight loss outweighs the possibility of greater side effects? That conversation should be interesting. Subscribe to Beyond the Shot for honest breakdowns of GLP-1 medications, weight loss science, nutrition, muscle protection, and the health claims spreading across social media. Our next investigation will break down what happens when someone stops taking a GLP-1 and why maintaining the weight loss may be harder than losing it. This video is for general education and is not individualized medical advice. Never purchase or use a product claiming to contain Retatrutide outside an authorized clinical trial. Speak with a qualified healthcare professional before beginning, stopping, or changing any medication, supplement, or weight management plan.